I think the main thing that I do want to express to people out there is just be very aware that everybody is not honest. Everybody is not concerned about what may be concerning you, your situation, however it might be in terms of financially. So be aware that there are companies out there that might take advantage of your loved ones, particularly your elderly parents. There are many people in the world that have elderly parents now, and some of the issues um, with that concerning them, making sure they're taken care of and they're well in every way. Um, but at the same time, we know they're still adults and they make decisions sometimes that may not always be in their best interest. And you're always hoping that people are honest and they're sensitive to those kinds of needs, but that's not always the case. Okay, first of all, it did not happen to me, it happened to my parents. I'm actually live in Georgia, and this company is located in Pennsylvania, where my parents live. And so I learned of it through actually one of my siblings, that this incident had occurred. And of course, I did then speak to my parents concerning it. So Waldron is a company that is located in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. And my parents had an issue with their electrical power going out in the home. My parents are elderly parents, so obviously they were concerned about it. I think mom had been hearing some clicking and flickering with the lights and popping and was concerned about, the house catching a fire, whatever. And so was majorly concerned. And in her concern, her fear, anxiety, not really knowing what to do, I believe at the time had tried to get in touch with some other people as far as electrical companies, did not reach them because this did happen on a weekend. And it was like 11 o'clock, between 11 and 12 o'clock at night on a Friday, which happened to be June 21st of this year. So looked into the yellow pages and saw a big ad. And the one that she saw obviously was Waldron Electric. And since that time I have looked, they do have a major advertisement. They have 24-hour service. It sounds all convincing, and what this is the answer to possibly their issues. And so, in that event, when she called this company, you know, her fears were escalated even more, and obviously the need for the person to come out seemed more prevalent, and she didn't. Obviously, they felt like they didn't have any other choice. It's late at night. What are you going to do? And at that moment in time, he let her know that the fee for him just to come from his place to her place was over $800. Obviously, this was shocking. They're like scared and nervous about what's going on, obviously, and felt compelled to agree to that. And so that's like the beginning of the whole situation. Just coming from their doorstep to hers was over $800. So right there, that was ridiculous. So that's how it began. And of course, once he got there, he gets in. Immediately, she signs papers concerning that particular fee. And without even knowing initially what the diagnostic fee was going to be, to just look to see what the problem was, obviously, this person is very persuasive, is taking advantage of elderly people. My father is elderly, and not long, he's just not been elderly, he's also disabled. And so after talking about what the diagnostic fee was going to be, I think that was somewhere over $2,000 just to look to see what was going on with the situation. Um, he commits to going about doing that. Obviously, there's paperwork signed and all this going on. And at the end of the story, make kind of short, is he discovered that there were four blown fuses. One was a main circuit, and then two other smaller ones. And usually the main circuit is like two and one. So it was four altogether. And at the end of this whole finasco, I call it, the total pricing came up to like $7,100 for just that. And I did the research, and I know that fuses and most electricians do not charge those kinds of fees. Um, and those items, just, I mean, there is a minimum amount of cost that would cost for you to go buy a fuse to put in the house to put the power back on. It wasn't like the whole panel was had to be repaired. Even with that, the fees for that average nationally, it could be 1,500 at the minimum, 4,000 at the max. That's the whole panel. Here it was only four. And so obviously I was very disturbed. My mother and they were very disturbed because if, at the end of the day, she really didn't have the money. She pulled out credit cards to try to cover this cost. And unfortunately, the cards, this guy Waldron, he obviously charged these cards to the max of what was on there, and it still was not enough to cover the total fees that he did charge. But it was a nominal amount that was still ridiculous in terms of for the issues that had occurred there at the home. So immediately I was disturbed by it, and I did my diligence in searching and just getting research about this kind of service. What is the average cost? Those kinds of things. Then discovered that this person, Waldron Electric, Mr. Waldron, and whoever else works with him, this is kind of his. Um, this is something that he's done quite often to a lot of people. So there's a lot of people that have been affected by this country, in throughout the area, in the Pennsylvania area, and who knows where else, because I understand he does have alias names and all those kinds of things. But he's managed to get away with it over and over again. People have put in complaints, as I've been doing my research and put in my different complaints to different companies like FCC. I did Lieutenant General, General Attorney, all that. Others have done the same. And apparently he's gotten away with it more often than not. There are people that have actually sued the company in times past. I think he has lost some of those cases, but he's learned, he's bettered his game by in some kind of ways getting the customers to go ahead and sign for everything. And then I guess he uses that as his power because he feels like, well, he gave them the information and they agreed to it. But the thing about it is you're taking advantage of people in vulnerable situations, particularly elderly people. I can't imagine who all else, maybe have been taken by this company. And so that's the issue. It's a sad situation. It should not be allowed. Um, Even though I did learn Pennsylvania and apparently other states too, because I learned Georgia has that too, that these independent contractors, they can charge whatever they want. I mean, it doesn't even matter. And it's just totally ridiculous in every way. So it's a combination of all of those things. It hurts the most that, first of all, my parents are elderly and they were in a situation and they were kind of lost in terms of what to do. Um, and the way they went about it was at that moment what their mind told them to do because they're afraid and fearful of the home catching a fire and that whole thing. This company, this man has to know that some elderly person calling you, you know, almost midnight concerning an issue in the home, you already know that they're in a stressful situation. He had to hear that in mom's voice. And for him to take advantage of just that, to charge them but such a nominal fee just to leave from his place to hers was more than enough already right there. So for the fact that they're elderly, the fact they're in a crisis situation, the fact that they're obviously, are stressed and scared and nervous and fearful, you took advantage of that. Then you took advantage of the fact to charge them way above the normal that anyone would charge for the issues that they had. To come there and to do that, to come in and then take further advantage. He was there alone with my parents. I can only imagine how much more the fears were escalated. the need to hurry up and get this done, and them in a situation really not knowing what to do or understand it. I understand they did reach out to one of my siblings, and something happened with the phone. He tried to talk to, and trying to figure out what was all going on because of this phenomenal fee. Didn't know, was he having to go through the walls? Was he doing electrical work through the walls, or having to put in new wiring? All those kinds of things. There was a disconnect. By the time anybody knew anything, the man had come in and did his due and charged this phenomenal amount for the fee. So it's the near fact that you took advantage at a vulnerable time, late at night, elderly people feeling helpless, depending on you, because they're trusting, they're thinking, you're doing, you know, right toward them. Even when they're hearing these phenomenal fees, I'm sure they're like shocked and thinking, oh my God, But at the same time, they're in a situation, no power. They need that. They need to have that power. My dad has a machine that he has to wear at night to help with his breathing and all that, and checking, keeping his oxygen level a certain way or whatever. And so that's what's horrible. The money is horrible too, because obviously they didn't have it. You have a credit card, that's not money you have. You got to pay all that back. And then to run those to the max is just unbelievable. Um, and just the fact that they were elderly and knowing what the national average is, that the average electrician would never charge these amount of fees for service. It was just unbelievable. But and the other part that hurts me a lot too, is to discover that this is my parents aren't the first victims to this kind of thing. That there are lots of other people who've had the same testimony. Similar things have happened to them as well. And then the attitude of this company and this owner is so flippant. Like it, he doesn't have no feelings about it because he feels like he's in his right to do what he does. And so that's what's disheartening too. And that it's allowed, obviously, it's allowed in our country. And that's not, in my opinion, our American way. That's not the ideal um, type of country that we truly want to represent in terms of how we treat each other, and our services for our people. That's natural things that we have to survive and live a comfortable life, like power and electricity. I mean, that's common and normal. And so there should be some regulation in terms of how much one could be charged, even if you're privately owned. I don't get it. I don't understand that part, how that can go along, particularly when you have elderly laws. We have elderly laws for a reason. Somebody in the higher power created those laws because they realize when you get to a certain age, you're more vulnerable to these kinds of things, to being scammed, to being tricked, to being, particularly in vulnerable times. And so this is what's very disheartening to me, because I care about people and I care about other people. And I see it as something that it happened to my parents. It can happen to other people too. So it's like, I feel like people need to be made aware of how this company operates. And so if they ever come in contact with this company, that they obviously do the research, realize this kind of thing has happened, and you never know, they may be scamming you or scamming your loved one, and it's like making people more aware of these kind of companies do exist. This is one specifically that does exist. My parents experienced it. I've done the research. I realize that this is a trend from time to time that this company does have. And so I feel it's important to let the public know, to be aware that this kind of thing can easily happen to your parent or someone who maybe is not aware of, how things really operate. Maybe you're not even aware of what the normal cost of things are. I mean, think of someone who maybe even has mental illness or something or whatever. They could be easily scammed and taken advantage of. So awareness is one of the major reasons why I wanted people to know about it and to realize that, unfortunately, for things like this, the basic things of life that we need to have, there are people out there that do not care about your situation, do not care about your family or someone you love, that if they have the opportunity to take advantage of them, this kind of company will do it if it's convenient. Presently, no, not on our behalf. I have not personally contacted the company directly just yet because I felt it important for me to do all my research and for me to contact all the people that I thought might be able to deal with this in a professional way as best I could. So that's why I contacted the attorney general and all the things that I've done. Um, my brother did contact the company, and based on what he said, the response was not positive whatsoever. It was negative in every way, pretty much um, shut him down with the attitude, oh, well, it's not his problem. So that tells me a lot. I mean, I have direct information from my brother, his attitude toward him, trying to talk to him and reason with him about it. There was, um, it was not successful whatsoever. And also the witnesses of different ones, like I've read about, this has happened to. The attitude has been pretty much the same. They have not had a positive response from this company at all from that perspective. It appears that the only way anything have happened positively for people who have been hurt by this company has obviously been through um, legal actions in some form or fashion when it was available and when things worked out for them. So in terms of uh, directly to me, nothing, because I mean, he may not know anything about me, but maybe he does, and he doesn't care anyway. So I'm waiting for the Attorney General's office to contact me. I know all that process is happening, and it's my understanding that they will be getting a mediator concerning it. So I'll just see what happens from that perspective, if he responds at that point or not. But presently, nothing directly to me.